Manchester. From Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, at en.wikipedia.org. This is the first of two sound files. Manchester is a city and metropolitan borough of Greater Manchester, England. The City of Manchester Metropolitan Borough, which has city status, has a population of 452,000. Manchester lies at the centre of the wider Greater Manchester urban area, which has a population of 2,240,230, the United Kingdom's third largest conurbation. It is also the second largest urban zone in the UK and the 14th most populated in Europe. Forming part of the English core cities group, and often described as the capital of the North, Manchester today is a centre of the arts, the media, higher education and commerce. In a poll of British business leaders published in 2006, Manchester was regarded as the best place in the UK to locate a business. A report commissioned by Manchester Partnership, published in 2007, showed Manchester to be the fastest growing city economically. It is the third most visited city in the United Kingdom by foreign visitors, and is often now considered to be the second city of the UK. Manchester was the host of the 2002 Commonwealth Games, and among its other sporting connections are its two Premier League football teams, Manchester United and Manchester City. Historically, most of the city was a part of Lancashire, with areas south of the River Mersey being in Cheshire. Manchester was the world's first industrialised city, and played a central role during the Industrial Revolution. It was the dominant international centre of textile manufacture and cotton spinning. During the 19th century, it acquired the nickname Cottonopolis, suggesting it was a metropolis of cotton mills. Manchester city centre is now on a tentative list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites, mainly due to the network of canals and mills constructed during its 19th century development. Section 1. History. See also the main article entitled History of Manchester. Toponymy. The name Manchester originates from the ancient Roman name Mamucium, thought to be a Latinisation of an original Celtic name, possibly meaning breast-like hill, from mam, meaning breast, plus Anglo-Saxon castra, meaning town, which is derived from Latin castra, meaning camp. Manchester is also the 10th most common place name in the United States. Early history. There are few signs of prehistoric occupation of the city. The only major Bronze Age finds have been to the south, where the remains of an extensive farming community were discovered during the construction of Manchester Airport's second runway. Central Manchester has been settled since at least Roman times. Gnaeus Julius Agricola constructed a fort called Mamucium in the 70s AD on a defensible hill where the River Medlock meets the River Irwell at the junction of roads to Chester, York, Buxton, Ribchester and Milandra. A stabilised fragment of foundations of the final version of the fort is visible in Castlefield. The Romans withdrew in the early 5th century, and by the time of the Norman conquest in 1066, the focus of settlement had shifted to the confluence of the rivers Irwell and Irk. Much of the wider area was laid waste in the subsequent harrying of the north. Thomas de la Warr, lord of the manor, founded and constructed a collegiate church for the parish in 1421. The church is now Manchester Cathedral. The domestic premises of the college now house Chetham's School of Music and Chetham's Library. Around the 14th century, Manchester received an influx of Flemish weavers, sometimes credited as the foundation of the region's textile industry. Manchester became an important centre for the manufacture and trade of woolens and linen, and by about 1540 had expanded to become, in John Leland's words, the fairest, best builded, quickest and most populous town of all Lancashire. The cathedral and Chetham's buildings are the only significant survivors of Leland's Manchester. During the English Civil War, Manchester strongly favoured the parliamentary interest. Although not long-lasting, Cromwell granted it the right to elect its own MP. Charles Worsley, who sat for the city for only a year, was later appointed Major General for Lancashire, Cheshire and Staffordshire during the rule of the Major Generals. He was a diligent Puritan, turning out alehouses and banning the celebration of Christmas. He died in 1656. Significant quantities of cotton began to be used after about 1600, firstly in linen cotton fustians, but by around 1750 pure cotton fabrics were being produced, and cotton had overtaken wool in importance. The Irwell and Mersey were made navigable by 1736, opening a route from Manchester to the sea docks on the Mersey. The Bridgewater Canal, Britain's first wholly artificial waterway, was opened in 1761, bringing coal from mines at Worsley to central Manchester. The canal was extended to the Mersey at Runcorn by 1776. The combination of competition and improved efficiency halved the cost of coal and halved the transport cost of raw cotton. Manchester became the dominant marketplace for textiles produced in the surrounding towns. A commodities exchange, opened in 1729, and numerous large warehouses aided commerce. In 1780, Richard Arkwright began construction of Manchester's first cotton mill. Industrial Revolution. Much of Manchester's history is concerned with textile manufacture during the Industrial Revolution. The great majority of cotton spinning took place in the towns of South Lancashire and North Cheshire, and Manchester was, for a time, the most productive centre of cotton processing, and later the world's largest marketplace for cotton goods. Manchester was dubbed Cottonopolis and Warehouse City during the Victorian era. Manchester developed a wide range of industries, so that by 1835 Manchester was without challenge the first and greatest industrial city in the world. Engineering firms initially made machines for the cotton trade, but diversified into general manufacture. Similarly, the chemical industry started by producing bleaches and dyes, but expanded into other areas. Commerce was supported by financial service industries, such as banking and insurance. Trade, and feeding the growing population, required a large transport and distribution infrastructure. The canal system was extended, and Manchester became one end of the world's first intercity passenger railway, the Liverpool and Manchester Railway. Competition between the various forms of transport kept costs down. In 1878, the GPO, the forerunner of British Telecom, provided its first telephones to a firm in Manchester. The Manchester Ship Canal was created by canalisation of the rivers Irwell and Mersey for 36 miles, 58 kilometres, from Salford to the Mersey estuary. This enabled ocean-going ships to sail right into the port of Manchester. On the canal's banks, just outside the borough, the world's first industrial estate was created at Trafford Park. Large quantities of machinery, including cotton processing plant, were exported around the world. As well as being a centre of capitalism, the city saw its fair share of rebellions by the working and non-titled classes, most famously on St. Peter's Field on the 16th of August 1819, known as Peterloo. Manchester was the subject of Friedrich Engels' The Conditions of the Working Class in England in 1844, Engels himself spending much of his life in and around Manchester. The first Trades Union Congress was held in Manchester, at the Mechanics' Institute, David Street, from the 2nd to the 6th of June 1868. Manchester was also an important cradle of the Labour Party and the suffragette movement. At that time it seemed a place in which anything could happen. New industrial processes, new ways of thinking, the Manchester School promoting free trade and laissez-faire, new classes or groups in society, new religious sects, and new forms of labour organisation. It attracted educated visitors from all parts of Britain and Europe. A saying capturing this sense of innovation survives today. What Manchester does today, the rest of the world does tomorrow. Manchester's golden age was perhaps the last quarter of the 19th century. Many of the great public buildings, including the town hall, date from then. The city's cosmopolitan atmosphere contributed to a vibrant culture, which included the Halle Orchestra. In 1889, when county councils were created in England, the municipal borough became a county borough with even greater autonomy. The number of cotton mills in Manchester itself reached a peak of 108 in 1853. In 1913, 65% of the world's cotton was processed in the area. but the First World War interrupted access to the export markets. Cotton processing in other parts of the world increased, often on machines produced in Manchester. Manchester suffered greatly from the interwar depression and the underlying structural changes that began to supplant the old industries, including textile manufacture. World War II. Like most of the UK, the Manchester area mobilised extensively during World War II. For example, casting and machining expertise at Bayer, Peacock and Company's locomotive works in Gorton was switched to bomb making. Dunlop's rubber works in Chorlton-on-Medlock made barrage balloons, and just outside the city, in Trafford Park, engineers Metropolitan Vickers made Avro Manchester and Avro Lancaster bombers, and Ford built the Rolls-Royce Merlin engines to power them. Manchester was thus the target of bombing by the Luftwaffe, and by late 1940 air raids were taking place against non-military targets. The biggest took place during the Christmas Blitz on the nights of 22nd, 23rd and 23rd, 24th of December 1940, when an estimated 467 imperial tons, 475 metric tons of high explosives, plus over 37,000 incendiary bombs were dropped. A large part of the historic city centre was destroyed, including 165 warehouses, 200 business premises and 150 offices. 376 were killed and 30,000 houses were damaged. Manchester Cathedral was among the buildings seriously damaged. Its restoration took 20 years. Cotton processing and trading continued to fall in peacetime, and the exchange closed in 1968. By 1963, the port of Manchester was the UK's third largest and employed over 3,000 men, but the canal was unable to handle the increasingly large container ships. Traffic declined and the port closed in 1982. Heavy industry suffered a downturn from the 1960s and was greatly reduced during the economic reforms associated with Margaret Thatcher's government, 1979 onwards. Manchester lost 150,000 jobs in manufacturing between 1961 and 1983. Regeneration began in the late 1980s with initiatives such as the Metrolink, the Bridgewater Concert Hall, the Manchester Evening News Arena, and, in Salford, the rebranding of the port as Salford Quays. 2 bids to host the Olympic Games were part of a process to raise the international profile of the city. 1996 bomb. See also the main article entitled 1996 Manchester bombing. Manchester has a history of attacks attributed to Irish Republicans, including the Manchester Martyrs of 1867, arson in 1920, a series of explosions in 1939, and 2 bombs in 1992. On Saturday the 15th of June 1996, the Provisional Irish Republican Army, IRA, detonated a large bomb next to a department store in the city centre. The largest to be detonated on British soil, the bomb injured over 200 people, heavily damaged nearby buildings, and broke windows half a mile away. The cost of the immediate damage was initially estimated at £50 million, but this was quickly revised upwards. The final insurance payout was over £400 million. Many affected businesses never recovered from the loss of trade. Redevelopment. Spurred by the investment after the 1996 bomb, and aided by the 17th Commonwealth Games, Manchester's city centre has undergone extensive regeneration. New and renovated complexes, such as the Print Works and the Triangle, have become popular shopping and entertainment destinations. The Manchester Arndale is the UK's largest city centre shopping mall. Large sections of the city dating from the 1960s have been either demolished and redeveloped, or modernised with the use of glass and steel. Old mills have been converted into modern apartments, Hume has undergone extensive regeneration programmes, and million-pound loft-house apartments have since been developed. The 169-metre-tall, 47-storey Beetham Tower, completed in 2006, is the tallest building in the UK outside London, and the highest residential accommodation in Western Europe. The lower 23 floors form the Hilton Hotel, featuring a sky bar on the 23rd floor. Its upper 24 floors are apartments. In January 2007, the Independent Casino Advisory Panel awarded Manchester a licence to build the only super casino in the UK to regenerate the Eastlands area of the city. But in March, the House of Lords rejected the decision by 3 votes, rendering previous House of Commons acceptance meaningless. This left the Super Casino and 14 other smaller concessions in parliamentary limbo until a final decision was made. On the 11th of July 2007, a source close to the government declared the entire Super Casino project dead in the water. A member of the Manchester Chamber of Commerce professed himself amazed and a bit shocked, and that there has been an awful lot of time and money wasted. After a meeting with the Prime Minister, Manchester City Council issued a press release on the 24th of July 2007, stating that, contrary to some reports, the door is not closed to a regional casino. Second City. See also the main article entitled Second City of the United Kingdom. Manchester has recently been regarded by the international press, British public and government ministers as being the second city of the United Kingdom. A 2007 poll by the BBC placed it ahead of Birmingham and Liverpool in the category of second city of England, but also ahead in the category of third city. Neither categories are officially sanctioned, and criteria for determining what second city means are ill-defined. Manchester is not the second largest city in size or population, but it is argued that cultural and historical criteria are more important. The BBC reports that redevelopment of recent years has heightened claims that Manchester is the second city of the UK. This title, however, which is unofficial in the UK, has traditionally been held by Birmingham since the early 20th century. Section 2. Governance. See also the main articles entitled Politics in Manchester and Manchester City Council, also the list entitled List of Lord Mayors of Manchester. Manchester is represented by 3 tiers of government: Manchester City Council, local, UK Parliament, national, and European Parliament, Europe. Greater Manchester County Council administration was abolished in 1986, and so the City Council is effectively a unitary authority. Since its inception in 1995, Manchester has been a member of the English Core Cities Group, which, amongst other things, serves to promote the social, cultural and economic status of the city at an international level. The town of Manchester was granted a charter by Thomas Grelly in 1301, but lost its borough status in a court case of 1359. Until the 19th century, local government was largely provided by manorial courts, the last of which ended in 1846. From a very early time, the township of Manchester lay within the historic county boundaries of Lancashire. Pevsner wrote that neighbouring Stretford and Salford are not administratively one with Manchester is one of the most curious anomalies of England. A stroke of a Norman baron's pen is said to have divorced Manchester and Salford, though it was not Salford that became separated from Manchester, it was Manchester, with its humbler line of lords, that was separated from Salford. It was this separation that resulted in Salford becoming the judicial seat of Salfordshire, which included the ancient parish of Manchester. Manchester later formed its own poor law union by the name of Manchester. In 1792, commissioners, usually known as police commissioners, were established for the social improvement of Manchester. In 1838, Manchester regained its borough status and comprised the townships of Beswick, Cheetham Hill, Chiltern upon Medlock and Hulme. By 1846, the borough council had taken over the powers of the police commissioners. In 1853, Manchester was granted city status. In 1885, Bradford, Harperhay, Rusholme and parts of Moss Side and Withington townships became part of the city of Manchester. In 1889, the city became the county borough of Manchester, separate from the administrative county of Lancashire, and thus not governed by Lancashire County Council. Between 1890 and 1933, more areas were added to the city from Lancashire, including former villages such as Burnage, Chiltern-cum-Hardy, Didsbury, Fallowfield, Levenshume, Longsight and Withington. In 1931, the Cheshire civil parishes of Bagley, Northenden and Northern Etchells from the south of the River Mersey were added. In 1974, by way of the Local Government Act 1972, the City of Manchester became a metropolitan district of the Metropolitan County of Greater Manchester. That year, Ringway, the town where Manchester Airport is located, was added to the city. Section 3. Geography. See also the article entitled Geography of Greater Manchester. At 53 degrees 28 minutes north and 2 degrees 14 minutes west, 53.466 and minus 2.233, 160 miles, 257 kilometres northwest of London, Manchester lies in a bowl-shaped land area, bordered to the north and east by the Pennine Hills, a mountain chain that runs the length of northern England, and to the south by the Cheshire Plain. The city centre is on the east bank of the River Irwell, near its confluences with the rivers Medlock and Irk, and is relatively low-lying, being between 115 and 138 feet, 35 and 42 metres above sea level. The River Mersey flows through the south of Manchester. Much of the inner city, especially in the south, is flat, offering extensive views from many high-rise buildings in the city of the foothills and moors of the Pennines, which can often be capped with snow in the winter months. Manchester's geographic features were highly influential in its early development as the world's first industrial city. These features are its climate, its proximity to a seaport at Liverpool, the availability of water power from its rivers, and its nearby coal reserves. The name Manchester, though officially applied only to the metropolitan district of Greater Manchester, has been applied to other, wider divisions of land, particularly across much of the Greater Manchester county and urban area. The Manchester City Zone, Manchester Post Town, and the Manchester Congestion Charge are all examples of this. The economic geography of the Manchester City region is used to define housing markets, business linkages, travel-to-work patterns, administrative areas, and so on. As defined by the Northern Way Economic Development Agency, the city region territory encompasses most of the natural economy's travel-to-work area and includes the cities of Manchester and Salford, plus the adjoining metropolitan boroughs of Stockport, Tameside, Trafford, Bolton, Bury, Oldham, Rochdale and Wigan, together with High Peak, which lies outside the North West England region, Congleton, Macclesfield, Vale Royal and Warrington. For the purposes of the Office for National Statistics, Manchester forms the most populous settlement within the Greater Manchester urban area, the United Kingdom's third largest conurbation. There is a mixture of high-density urban and suburban locations in Manchester. The largest open space in the city, at around 618 acres, 3 square kilometres, is Heaton Park. Manchester is contiguous on all sides with several large settlements, except for a small section along its southern boundary with Cheshire. The M60 and M65 motorways pass through the south of Manchester, through Northenden and Wythenshawe respectively. Heavy rail lines enter the city from all directions, the principal destination being Manchester Piccadilly Station. Manchester experiences a temperate maritime climate, like much of the British Isles, with relatively cool summers and mild winters. There is regular but generally light precipitation throughout the year. The city's average annual rainfall is 806.6 millimetres, 31.76 inches, compared to the UK average of 1,125 millimetres, 44.29 inches, and its mean rainy days are 140.4 per annum, compared to the UK average of 154.4. Manchester also has a relatively high humidity level, which lent itself to the optimised and breakage-free textile manufacturing which took place there. Snowfall is not a common sight in the city, due to the urban warming effect. However, the Pennine and Rossendale Forest hills that surround the city to its east and north receive more snow, and roads leading out of the city can be closed due to snow, notably the A62 road via Oldham and Standedge, the A57 Snake Pass towards Sheffield, and the M62 over Saddleworth Moor. Weather statistics. Average high temperature. January, 6.4 degrees Celsius, 43.5 degrees Fahrenheit. February, 6.6 degrees Celsius, 43.9 degrees Fahrenheit. March, 8.9 degrees Celsius, 48 degrees Fahrenheit. April, 11.6 degrees Celsius, 52.9 degrees Fahrenheit. May, 15.3 degrees Celsius, 59.5 degrees Fahrenheit. June, 18.2 degrees Celsius, 64.8 degrees Fahrenheit. July, 19.6 degrees Celsius, 67.3 degrees Fahrenheit. August, 19.5 degrees Celsius, 67.1 degrees Fahrenheit. September, 17 degrees Celsius, 62.6 degrees Fahrenheit. October, 13.7 degrees Celsius, 56.7 degrees Fahrenheit. November, 9.1 degrees Celsius, 48.4 degrees Fahrenheit. December, 7.1 degrees Celsius, 44.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Average low temperature. January, 1.3 degrees Celsius, 34.3 degrees Fahrenheit. February, 1.2 degrees Celsius, 34.2 degrees Fahrenheit. March, 2.5 degrees Celsius, 36.5 degrees Fahrenheit. April, 4.3 degrees Celsius, 39.7 degrees Fahrenheit. May, 7.3 degrees Celsius, 45.1 degrees Fahrenheit. June, 10.2 degrees Celsius, 50.4 degrees Fahrenheit. July, 12 degrees Celsius, 53.6 degrees Fahrenheit. August, 11.9 degrees Celsius, 53.4 degrees Fahrenheit. September, 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. October, 7.5 degrees Celsius, 45.5 degrees Fahrenheit. November, 3.6 degrees Celsius, 38.5 degrees Fahrenheit. December, 2 degrees Celsius, 35.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Mean total rainfall. January, 69 millimetres. February, 50 millimetres. March, 61 millimetres. April, 51 millimetres. May, 61 millimetres. June, 67 millimetres. July, 65 millimetres. August, 79 millimetres. September, 74 millimetres. October, 77 millimetres. November, 78 millimetres. December, 78 millimetres. Mean number of rainy days. January, 18.2. February, 13.1. March, 15.6. April, 14.4. May, 15.1. June, 14.4. July, 13.6. August, 15. September, 15. October, 16.5. November, 17. December, 17.4. This sound file and all text in the article are licensed under the GNU Free Documentation License, available at www.gnu.org/copyleft/FDL.html.